The movie starts with a man in his late 30s standing outside of a fortress, drinking his coffee and mentioning that it's his first time in Suwon. The man's name is Chin-soo, and he's a famous and successful movie director in South Korea. He's in Suwon by himself, on a trip to give a lecture about his new movie. He's feeling lonely in the city and constantly tries to find company. There's a girl responsible for helping him around town, Yeom, who he finds very pretty and keeps flirting with him. She wants to work as his assistant in one of his movies, but Chin-soo finds her too much of a temptation to work with. He has a reputation for being a ladies' man, despite being married with 2 kids. There are even rumors that he was involved in an affair with an actress that worked for him and another assistant. Taking advantage of that, Yeom flatters Chin-soo by telling him that his movies helped her out when she was feeling depressed and lonely and that he's the most important director for her. They have fun at the ice rink. Chin-soo touches Yeom inappropriately a couple of times, and the girl enjoys it. They have lunch together, then, as if he reminded himself of his reputation, he tells her he needs to leave. Wandering around town, he ends up at the fortress, a beautiful tourist attraction that was built in the 1700 seconds. He goes there to relax and enjoy a quiet time when a girl suddenly appears. She's younger than him, wearing casual clothes. At first glance, she doesn't look anything special. She quietly sips her banana milk while Chin-soo stares at her with interest. She's pretty. Chin-soo had managed to resist the temptation with Yeom, but when a second woman appears to him, he can't stop himself from talking to her. He wonders what she's doing there, and she sarcastically replies she's drinking banana milk. She doesn't seem very excited to talk to him, and it seems he's interrupting her quiet time. Still, she indulges him when he starts talking about what he's doing in Suwon. She soon finds out she's talking to a celebrity in the movie business, and it changes her perspective of him. At first, she thought he was just an annoying man, but now he's an annoying movie director. She introduces herself as Hee-jeong. Chin-soo asks what she does for a living, and she explains that she paints. He notices paint splatters on her clothes and gets closer than is polite to her. It's obvious she's uncomfortable with his presence and the way he touched her clothes without asking. Chin-soo is relentless in his pursuit, disregarding her discomfort and propriety. He invites her for coffee, and when she comes up with excuses, he insists. She finally relents and they go to a cafe. There, they start to get to know each other better. Hee-jeong explains that she used to work as a model, and though it paid well, it wasn't fulfilling. She decided to quit and start doing what she always wanted to do, paint. Ever since she was a child, she had a passion for drawing and painting, but her parents never supported her. As an adult, she decided to go after what she wanted, not what was expected from her. Now, she works at a small art studio and paints every day. She doesn't consider herself a great painter, and she knows she needs to practice a lot to get to the point of greatness. Chin-soo sees an opportunity to flatter the girl and says that he feels the same way she does about art. He talks a lot, and at times, Hee-jeong is awkward and doesn't know what to say. She offers to show him her paintings and they go to the art studio she works at. Hee-jeong gets ready to continue painting an almost done painting, and Chin-soo watches. The painting is nothing outstanding or original. Chin-soo, as a director, has a critical eye for art, and he doesn't think her colorful painting is great. Instead of giving her his honest opinion, he tells her that her work is amazing and that he can understand what she was thinking about when painting it. Hee-jeong is happy that he thought so, and when he invites her for dinner, she accepts without hesitation. At this time, Chin-soo already crossed some boundaries that he promised himself not to cross again. Hee-jeong is irresistible to him. A young painter trying to find her way in life, lonely and desperate for companionship. It's the perfect opportunity for him to have winter love. They go to a sushi restaurant, his idea, and as they eat, Chin-soo drinks a lot. Being a Casanova, Chin-soo doesn't spare compliments to Hee-jeong. He keeps telling her that she's beautiful, that she's the first woman to seem like a real woman to him, and that her painting is great. He even mentions that if he had a ring, he would propose to her. He never once tells her that he's married with kids, and she doesn't suspect anything. She's lonely and complains about not having any real friends. When she calls him a friend, he tells her that he doesn't like her as a friend, and Hee-jeong is bashful. She enjoys his attention and compliments, especially because he's a mature man, successful in life and in his career. He's nothing like the man she goes out with in Suwon. After dinner and drinking a lot, she invites him to go to her friend's house with her, and he accepts it. Her friend group consists of 2 college friends and her professor. The meeting doesn't work well for Chin-soo because one of Hee-jeong's friends knows of him and his reputation. While talking to them, Chin-soo compliments Hee-jeong's painting again using the same line he used once in an interview, and Hee-jeong's friend notices. She points out that she heard him say the same thing before and wonders if he uses that line with every woman he meets. Chin-soo didn't expect to be confronted like that and doesn't know what to say. He tries to laugh it off, but Hee-jeong's friends are relentless. The other one points out that directors have a reputation for being womanizers, and straight out asks Chin-soo if he's one since he had an affair with an actress and his assistant. Chin-soo tries to play it off as a rumor in the business, but it's not easy to lie to someone who knows about his life. Both women know he's married. He's forced to admit that he is, in fact, married with children. all while Hejiang listens in disbelief. Her facial expression, happy and relaxed before, changes to serious and closed off when she hears he's married. She can't believe he had been playing her that whole time, pretending to want to marry her when he was already married, and calling her beautiful. Her friend asks him about his marriage, and Chinsu explains that he married young, at a difficult time in his life. He met his wife and fell for her, and soon they got married. He had always been a ladies' man, and his wife was the opposite. He wanted to change for her, that's why he married her. Years down the road, and being in touch with so many beautiful women, Chinsu couldn't resist the temptation of going back to his womanizer ways. He started cheating on his wife. He tried not to, as he did with Yom, but if a woman is interesting enough for him, he forgets all about his family. Not willing to hear anymore, Hejiang excuses herself to go take a nap. Her friends explain that she always sleeps when she drinks, so her behavior isn't out of the ordinary. Later on, before he leaves, Chinsu tries talking to Hejiang, but she's still angry at him. She tells him to leave, and he does. Chinsu has no idea what he did wrong to make Hejiang angry at him. In his intoxicated brain, he thinks his behavior is acceptable. When Hejiang gets home, her mother is worried sick about her. Her mother is very protective of her and doesn't want anything bad to happen to her daughter. She pesters Hejiang about her drinking again, and they both go inside. The following morning, Chinsu gives his lecture, but he's very impolite to the audience and host. He gives curt answers and doesn't look like he wants to be there. Chinsu's friend goes there to see his lecture, and when he's leaving, she gives him a book of poetry. Chinsu is feeling like dirt after a night of drinking and chasing after Hejiang to end up being fruitless. The only thing he wants is to go back home. Yom approaches him and he vents about the interview. He puts all the blame on the host and complains that he didn't know what he was talking about. Yom agrees with him and asks if they can see each other again, this time in Seoul. Chinsu readily agrees. If it didn't work with Hejiang, it might be with Yom. She knows exactly who he is and that he's married with children, and she doesn't care. Before he leaves, she gives him an awkward hug. Chinsu doesn't reciprocate the hug, but he enjoys it. Another young woman falling for him is great for his inflated ego. They say their goodbyes and Chinsu leaves to go back home. The second part of the movie begins. This part shows how Chinsu should have played the game to make it right with Hejiang. It starts the same. Chinsu is at the fortress trying to sleep and have a quiet time when a girl approaches. She sits across from him and starts drinking banana milk. Chinsu finds her pretty and starts talking to her. This time, instead of talking her ear off, he lets her lead the conversation. They introduce themselves and he sits at an appropriate distance from her. She doesn't mention that she used to be a model, something that might have caught Chinsu's attention before. She only says that she used to work with something else, but now she paints. He invites her to have coffee again and she agrees with him. At the cafe, Chinsu lets her talk about herself. She explains that she stays with her mother and that her parents got divorced. She hasn't seen her father much because he moved to Seoul. Hejiang speaks calmly and quietly, differently from the first part, where she was more open to Chinsu. Chinsu calls her pretty again, but she doesn't think she is. Her answer is a contrast to the fact she was a model in the first part, and that Chinsu flattered her until she fell for his silver tongue. This time, flattery isn't the way to Hejiang. She continues talking about herself while Chinsu listens. He doesn't talk about his movies or try to impress her with his fame and success. He's much more contained than before and shows genuine interest in her that goes beyond her facial features or body. When they flirt, it's more subtle and quiet, not over the top. He tells her that he really wants to see her paintings, and again she invites him to go to her art studio. There, while she finishes her painting, he analyzes it with a critical eye. He doesn't flatter her with made-up phrases that he used when he was trying to flatter someone. He tells her that her painting has quality, but that it's something that she made for herself, not for others, to give herself comfort. He adds that it shows that she's lonely and that she's letting the past affect her present instead of moving on. For him, she's using art as therapy, which is fine when you're doing it as a hobby, but if she wants to be professional, she needs to open her mind more. As a director, Chinsu sees art as something that goes beyond the artist, like his movies. He doesn't make his movies for himself, or think about his life. He does it to help others, like Yeom when she told him that his movies helped her overcome her depression. Hejiang is still beginning, and though her painting has technique, it lacks feelings. Despite his giving her sound advice, Hejiang gets offended by the way he talks to her. Not about his opinion, but the way he analyzed her and found out her hidden feelings of loneliness and fear. Chinsu thinks she feels self-pity, which isn't a bad thing, but she needs to push herself and find her way to become a great artist. Hejiang feels even more self-pity after that, feeling as if she's not enough for him. But what he wanted to say is that she needs to stay alive to produce art, and in no way is he impolite about it. The problem is that it touches something in her that she didn't want to be touched. She knows of her loneliness, the way she tries looking for something to fulfill her, and never reaches it. Looking for people or places to find fulfillment is the wrong way to go. She needs to find her inner love and peace, then she'll be able to move on and become a great artist. When he notices that Hejiang isn't very happy with his honesty, he tries to explain that he's trying to help her as a fellow artist, not offend or humiliate her. Hejiang yells at him when he asks her to not be mad at his opinion, and Chinsu apologizes and excuses himself to go smoke. Before he goes, she asks how he could rip her art apart like that and if all directors are like him. He chuckles and says that they are. Hee-jeong has some time to think about what he said, and with a cooler head, she decides she overreacted. She was sad that he didn't think she was ready to be an artist, but it was something that she knew already. She repeatedly said that she was still a beginner and that she was learning. There was no reason for her to be angry with his honest opinion. Thinking about that, she goes after him. They pretend nothing happened before, and that Hee-jeong didn't yell at Chin-soo for his opinion. She shows him her house and tells him a story of a burglar that entered her house once but didn't steal anything. It's peaceful and calm again between them. He tells her she's cute again, and she gets bashful and replies that he doesn't think before speaking. Later on, they go out to eat sushi and drink at the same restaurant as before. While smoking outside, Chin-soo finds a ring and decides to keep it. When he goes back to the restaurant, he drinks a lot again. But Hee-jeong doesn't mind. After a few drinks, Chin-soo starts flirting with her. He says that he has never met a true woman like her, and Hee-jeong gets shy. She jokingly wonders if he uses that line with every girl he meets and that she knows that all directors are womanizers. Chin-soo smiles secretly at her and doesn't deny or agree with her statement. The conversation takes a turn when she asks if he really thinks she is lonely after seeing her painting. He replies that he noticed that from the moment he saw her, not from her painting. The reason he can notice it so easily is that he feels it too. Despite being always surrounded by people and even having fans, Chin-soo feels lonely and displaced. Feeling a kinship with him, she admits she is lonely and that she doesn't have many friends. She thinks she has a problem because she can't seem to make friends easily. Looking at her makes Chin-soo's heart hurt. He has never felt like that for anyone, not even his wife. She's a beautiful soul, and he can see that they have a lot in common, mainly in the way they feel isolated from the world. They both try to find a way to close the space inside them by drinking, going out with people, or having love affairs. It never seems to work. While he stares at her in the sushi restaurant, Chin-soo realizes that he might have found what he needed to be fulfilled. It's her. He has a sad look on his face scrunched almost as if he's holding his tears, and Hee-jeong asks why he looks at her like that. He confesses he might be in love with her. She bashfully laughs, both in disbelief and in happiness, because no one has ever told her that. Chin-soo continues saying that he wants to marry her, but he can't, because he's married. His confession of being married is another big difference from the first part. He thinks she deserves to know the truth and the reason why their sudden love can't happen. Holding his tears, Chin-soo tells her that he loves her despite being married and having 2 kids. Since seeing her at the cafe, and hearing her talk about herself and her life, made him fall madly in love with her. He starts really crying while Hee-jeong stares at the empty space. She has no idea what to say. She also has feelings for him, and she found that sense of belonging that is so rare to find. It's disappointing to know that he's married, and she doesn't know if she's brave enough to have an affair with him. She has no clue if he's being honest with his feelings or saying that to sleep with her before going back home. That's the last thing she wants. Chin-soo continues crying and tells her that even when he goes back to Seoul, he will continue to love and remember her. Hee-jeong finally finds her voice and tells him that she's feeling sad after his heartfelt confession. Chin-soo starts laughing and crying because he's glad that she's feeling sad, despite never saying that she loves him too. After sobbing his eyes out in front of her, Chin-soo slowly calms down. Hee-jeong sadly tells him that she wishes they met in the past before he got married and had a family. She even jokes that he was probably more handsome back then, and a womanizer. Chin-soo chuckles and replies that he wouldn't know if he was because he got married early and never dated much. That's why now that he's older, he keeps going after younger women, to have in his adulthood what he couldn't when he was young. He repeats that she's beautiful and that he really loves her. Hee-jeong shyly smiles, but again she doesn't say she loves him back. She's feeling confused and even a bit scared because she never felt that way for anyone, much less a person she just met. They stay in silent contemplation for a few moments, each lost in their own heads. Chin-soo remembers the ring that he found and shows it to her. He wonders if he can put it on her and pretend that they are married. Hee-jeong indulges him. The ring fits perfectly in her left hand. She stares at the ring and finds it beautiful. The person who lost it probably took care of it and cherished it. Now it was hers to take care of and a token to always remember Chin-soo. His spirits lift when she accepts it and the previously morose mood lightens. Hee-jeong also laughs and calls him cute while touching him for the first time. It's an intimate touch on his arm, one a lover would do. She stares at the ring for a while, wondering what life would have been like if they were married. When she thanks him for it, he replies that he should be thanking her for making his weekend great. Even after knowing her for a day, Hee-jeong made Chin-soo feel alive. Their quick love is going to serve as inspiration for his art, and he's going to carry her in his heart for a long time, if not forever. After his declaration, they drink some more and stay some time only staring at each other. They are storing that moment in their minds and heart, to remember it when they are feeling lonely and sad again. To know that there's a person in the world that shares that with them and that despite the distance, they are connected by their feelings. Later on, Hee-jeong invites Chin-soo to her friend's house and he accepts it. The following scene, Hee-jeong already went to take a nap and left Chin-soo with her friends. One of them is a big fan of his work and she's excited to talk to him. Chin-soo is drunk and still sad. He gets shy when she keeps complimenting him, different from the way he acted in the first part. They also note that he's different from the way the rumors depict him, as a womanizer and a cheating husband. They think he's innocent and humble. Chin-soo drinks even more and gets to a point where he can barely stand. He briefly passes out, worrying the women, but assures them he's fine. He isn't. All the previous feelings are heightened by alcohol, and he starts feeling anxious. He feels so suffocated that he starts stripping in front of the women, saying that he needs to get some air. While taking off his clothes, he's thinking about going back home the next day, returning to his routine with his wife and family, leaving Hee-jeong. It's too much for him to handle. He doesn't think it's fair for him to find a person to love and not be able to. It's not fair to his family either, since they are waiting for him back home. Nor is it to Hee-jeong, because even if he stayed with her, he wouldn't be completely free. The women get upset that he's trying to strip, and threaten to call the police. Before things escalate, Chin-soo decides to go to his hotel. He wakes Hee-jeong up and tells her he's leaving. He invites her to go with him on a walk for fresh air, and despite being cold outside, she goes. As they walk towards her house, her mother calls because she's worried about Hee-jeong. Her friends called her after she left to tell her she left with the director, and that he stripped for them. Hee-jeong finds it funny and calms her mother down, telling her she's going home. When she turns off the call, she playfully asks if Chin-soo really stripped for her friends, and he embarrassedly explains that he was feeling suffocated and drunk. Hee-jeong doesn't mind that he stripped. She's also disappointed that she wasn't there to see him without his clothes. They arrive at her home and Hee-jeong has to go inside because her mother is waiting for her. Chin-soo tries to make her stay so they can talk and spend more time together, but it's freezing outside and Hee-jeong didn't want her mother to know she was with a man. She tells him she's going to go inside and pretend to sleep, then she leaves to meet him. Before she leaves, she gives him 2 kisses on the cheek, and he says the next one he wants on the mouth. Her mother is waiting for her outside her house, worried about her, and she explains that she drank a little. Chin-soo stands in the freezing cold waiting for her, but she never shows up. He leaves after some time waiting. The following day, his interview goes much differently than the first one. He's polite, humble, and pleasant to the host and the audience. When it's over and he's waiting outside, Hee-jeong appears. She explains that she went there to watch his movie, the first she's going to watch. They are a bit awkward with each other, not knowing what to say or do. Since they are out in the open, they couldn't kiss or hug. Instead, Chin-soo politely extends his hand for a handshake. Hee-jeong accepts it and he thanks her for everything. After that, she runs into the theater to watch the movie. She's sad and regretting not saying a proper goodbye when Chin-soo appears behind her. Hee-jeong apologizes for leaving him waiting the night before, but she was afraid of waking her mother up. Chin-soo dismisses her worries because he didn't wait for a long time, which is a lie. He hopes she's going to enjoy his movie, and she promises that she's going to watch all his movies, as a way to remember him. She finishes by saying she's happy for the opportunity to meet him and that she's going to miss him. He says he will too. Then, he leaves. It's not an overly romantic or dramatic goodbye, but it's enough for them. Hee-jeong is still wearing his ring, and she's happy when she leaves the theater after watching his movie. Despite not being able to end up together, the fact that they could at least get to know each other for a while is enough. From then on, whenever they feel lonely, they will remember each other, no matter where they are.